accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
And welcome to GLOBEBUSTERS, Season 9, Episode 26, Globe Deception Timeline. Should be a good show. And I'll go ahead and introduce the panel. So, up first, we have none other than Jeran from Jeranism. What's going on, my brother?
How's it going, my friend? Doing fantastic. Thanks for having me. It's going to be a fun show.
No problem. I decided to have you on. I had to think about it, but I did decide to have you on.
I appreciate it. Nice to you.
Yeah. Zach is also here from Good Times for All. How's it going, my brother?
What's up, Austin? How's it going, Jeran?
Great, thank you.
You gentlemen having a good weekend?
Yeah, man. How about yourself?
Yeah, can't complain. 75. Got a little stomach thing that's been going on the last couple of days. Nothing like major, but it's just like it throws me out of my rhythm.
It's COVID.
COVID. I will definitely not be going and taking the test.
You don't want the cotton swab jabbed into your brain? That's weird.
No, I don't get that. No, it doesn't. That doesn't make sense. Never before was it ever done, and then all of a sudden, no. My mom said she allowed him to do that. I'm not letting someone stick something that far up my nose. No.
Why would that be necessary anyway? If you're able to get it's on people's stuff, or you're able to just breathe it, then just like spit in a napkin.
Yeah, there you go.
Be able to test it. No, we got to stick this thing in your brain. It's the only way to tell if you have this virus.
4 inches up your nose or whatever. No, thanks. I'm good.
Well, hopefully we get to experience that again, since we've kind of, it's been a while.
Hopefully, yes, it's been too long. But you remember the videos of people that would be, and I mean, it's safe and effective. We all know that, but there was people that would be wheeled out of the office in a stretcher, and there'd be like people standing in line to get their shot. People just being wheeled out. That's great stuff. Because I think they passed out or something was too hot inside. I think, but
yeah, it's just the AC, bro.
Right. Should have cooled it down a little bit.
Just a reminder to everybody: we have a Telegram. I'm throwing the Telegram in the description in the chat, so I'll try to drop I'll drop the PowerPoint from today in that Telegram. So cool. All right, I guess we can jump right into it, and then we may have some people join throughout the show. But yeah, you guys have anything you want to say before we jump into the PowerPoint?
Yeah, Space Audits channel. If you haven't been over there and subscribed, go subscribe to Alan. He's been doing a lot of live streams and stuff, and he has just a panel of very bright gentlemen that are always with him. And yeah, the conversations are amazing. It's like watching a couple Austins have a conversation together. Really, it's amazing. So yeah, go check out Space Audits channel. He's been here on GLOBEBUSTERS a couple times. We're going to try and get him over in the GLOBEBUSTERS tech channel with some topics that he's familiar with, to come in and share some of his knowledge. Yeah, he's just really bright guy, and I can't wait to see what he comes up with next.
Yeah, man, Alan's a legend.
He's definitely fantastic, and Caleb's doing a good job too. I had to point him out on my show. He's just
yeah, he's on TikTok a lot, right?
Yeah, he's getting tons of views. I mean, way more than we're getting on YouTube. But yeah, he's just doing a good job, and I saw his Telegram group has a ton of people. He's just his word is spreading, so that's
awesome.
Much more valuable than mine.
Yeah, we're actually supposed to be co-authoring a book exposing modern scientism, so it's going to cover a ton of subjects. It's going to be pretty crazy. And then
you and Caleb?
Yeah.
Nice.
And then I think I'm going to start jumping on TikTok with him. He asked me to start jumping on there with him, so we'll see how that goes.
Well, yeah, it seems like he gets some people to step up, and he gets a lot of views. So, still, you're going to get a lot more there than you are at YouTube.
Yeah, and I guess he also goes to X or Twitter Spaces, right? What's crazy? Did you guys know that Firmament was trending on Twitter?
Yeah, yesterday.
Yesterday. Yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah, I guess I might jump on a show with Justin Harvey, some debate if anyone will take the bait. So It's an interesting time. It seems to just kind of be that moment that it's all about to explode. So it should be interesting.
Yeah, I just saw a bunch of people forward me different shows where they even had a show where they clipped out part of GLOBEBUSTERS and put it over there, and it was all of us talking about why would they lie. So it was great. Just these random shows. These are mostly like alien. They're talking about aliens and stuff, but I don't know. It's just they're all kind of catching on. I guess there's this whole. Did you see the videos of MH370? Supposedly, people showing that video of the 3 orbs that go around it. I don't know if you've seen that. Anyway, in that circle, there's a lot of people starting to talk about, well, we don't think it's actually aliens. We think it's human technology. And, I've even heard people say like possibly they came from the outer lands. So,
oh, wow.
It's starting to rub off.
Shout out to Justin Johnson for gifting 10 GLOBEBUSTERS memberships.
Justin.
That guy's a legend. Thank you guys. Pick them up. Pick them up. All right.
Did something happen to Alan's channel? I see one 30-second video on there now, and that's it. Nothing on his community post. No videos.
On space audits?
Oh, space audits. Sorry, I said audit NASA.
There's like nothing on there.
Yeah.
All right. Although I'm supposed to be going to NASA. I want to go this week. I'm waiting on these glasses to get here, but yeah, I'm going to be talking to an astronaut. Maybe actually this
What
week.
are they, the glasses with the camera in them?
Yep.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. And then I think I'm going to start doing like some little behind the scenes for like, I don't know, the Patrons and stuff. You guys can see me while I'm there. All right. Well, let's get into the PowerPoint. I guess there's quite a bit here. You guys jump in because I know you guys will have stuff to input. I don't want to just be the only one talking the whole time. I don't want to bore people. All right, let's pop it over and make it full screen. So this is the globe deception timeline, and it's pretty interesting when you look through it. Obviously, this doesn't have everything in it. I mean, it would have to be like a 7-hour show to actually cover everything, right? So that's why I'm saying if you guys think of anything to pop in, just jump in. All right, so here it is kind of laid out based on, this is obviously just based on like the history that we were told, right? I mean, you take it with a grain of salt, but you have the actual like birth of the idea of the globe Earth in 350 BC. And then they claim to figure out the distance to the sun, even though it isn't what they currently say it is. And then they use the assumption of the distant sun with Eratosthenes supposedly determine the circumference and therefore the radius. You got the first physical globe model being in 1492. And I have a slide for each one of these. You get the Copernican model and Kepler's laws, and then using Venus, assuming it's the same size. And then you get the idea of gravity in 1666. And Michelson-Morley, ionosphere, relativity. We'll cover all of this in more detail. Here is the government start popping off in like the mid 1900s. I just think it's cool to like break this all down and put it into like a sequential understanding, because when you do that, it's pretty difficult to not see. I mean, I will say for me, when I first found out that the government was doing all this, I don't know about you guys, but I was like, oh my God, it's so obvious. Am I the only one that this is like, to me, like once you see what the government was doing in regards to the Earth, that it just becomes like incredibly obvious something's going on?
Well, yeah, it's exactly like this story that, was removed from the Bible, but the story of Nimrod. They went to the outer edge first, and found something there, couldn't get through it, so they decided to build the Tower of Babel and go up. Well, instead of building a tower, we sent rockets up and tried exploding it. But yeah, same exact thing. Like right in that timeline, all these things just fell into place. Boom, 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 boom. It's wild.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. And there is a quick little edited video on my channel. I think it's like the first edited video I've ever posted. Shout out to my boy Toby that made it. But briefly run through this, but we're going to cover a bunch of the slides here. So we got 350 BC. Aristotle allegedly was the first to declare the Earth was a sphere because moving north and south causes an alteration in the horizon in, quote, on the heavens, which is his writing. This was built upon earlier declaration. The perfect shape was a sphere, thus the Earth must be a sphere. So So Aristotle says, oh, well, look, the moon looks kind of like a sphere. And when we go north and south, how much of the sky we see in relation to the horizon changes. So that must mean the Earth's a sphere. So that seems pretty legit.
Do you even believe that, really, though? I mean,
the only reason I would be inclined to believe it is because it's so retarded. You know what I'm saying? I would think the only reason it may be true is because the alleged evidence he has is so dumb. Like, why wouldn't if you like wrote it recently, right? Like, wouldn't you make it something better than that?
Well, how old are the oldest books, Jeran?
It depends on what you consider to be proof of dating a book. I mean, they base the dates of books on the material used, the ink used, and the writing style. So there's no way to actually date a book. So
you could have faked all of history. Could have been faked.
Yeah, pretty easily. Anatoly Fomenko says the oldest book that he would put a reliable date on is about 1300. So, and I mean, anything before that is really, even admittedly, a copy of a copy, right? Like if you look at old, say, Ptolemy stuff or things like that, like it doesn't even tell us what the date he thought he was writing in, because now it's been rewritten with our current dating structure. So it gets a little bit confusing as far as that goes. But yeah, as far as reliably dating those things, and then they just not a lot of primary evidence for any of the guys back then, Eratosthenes or Herodotus or these kind of guys. But yeah, so it's up to you what you want to believe with history. For me, I think it's just hard to believe any of that, because a lot of it doesn't really seem to jive or make sense. And even Eratosthenes, the whole thing is kind of weird, because he also has reports of believing that the sun was close, and so he would have never also thought the sun was an infinite distance away. So it's just kind of one of those things where I guess you can believe what you want, but the whole story, I've told the story a million times about the Library of Alexandria, is probably the funniest of all stories, which is like, oh, all the humans' knowledge, we all took our books, we all put it in this one library, and then it caught on fire and it burned for 6 months. So I don't know if they were trying to put it out with fire, but it must have.
So in your guys' opinion, is there any way to truly date anything accurately?
I don't think carbon dating is
I
don't know. Carbon dating seems to be correct, because I think that it's got a short enough half-life that you can probably use that to estimate the dates of things, but it has to have organic material in it. So, and it seems to always come back at less than 20,000 years. But then anything older than that, I mean, the way that they date, I used to think they dated dinosaur bones, like they put them into some sort of machine or something. They don't. They just look at the strata around it, the earth layers around it, and then figure, oh, if we found it in this layer, it means it's this old. But we know that there's trees that grow up through many millions of years of columns. So obviously it's just a pseudoscience.
So anything man-made cannot be dated accurately. So like the marble face we're looking at on the screen right now, or we were looking at a second ago.
So let's put it this way. Let's say we wipe out everything. We just erase everything that we know about as far as science figuring out dates in the past. And let's say it's us three, and we find a pot, or we find some sort of whatever it is, a cave painting. Like, how would you even, you don't have anything to put it against. So we can come up with whatever theory we want. Say, okay, this is 700 years old, but we don't have any way of saying, okay, that's correct. So then what they do is they find the next item, and they say, oh, this looks like it was before that one. Okay, let's call it this age. Oh, this looks like it was made after that one. But there's no way to actually verify that. It's just a story that's told well.
So if they really wanted to, 300 years ago, they could have made everything. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that statue isn't, 700, 800, 1,000 years old. I'm having trouble believing that. But let's say it is. It does, okay, with his name on it. That doesn't mean that all the books written about this person, that he even wrote any of that. How can we take, when we know that these people in charge today are lying about so many things? Yeah, it's hard for me to believe that anything from the past is true. That's just me when it comes to history.
Michael Kretmer in the chat says, carbon dating, if it came down to your life on the line, would you still trust it? Hell no. if I led that to be no, certainly not. No, certainly not.
Yeah, but I love doing this, Austin, going over like their story of how it went down. But I just wanted to make that point like near the beginning that, I don't know of anything that they wrote. I don't even know if Ptolemy was,
Yeah, I mean, some of those things,
an astrologer.
I guess I'll give it to him, but I mean, some of the things just make zero sense. I mean, and again, you try and bring this up. It's like now that you get these globers to admit that boats don't go over the curve. Let's say with our eyes, their new thing is if you say, well, I see it go over with the eyes and then I use a zoom in and I can bring it back. They're like, oh, well, that just means it never actually went over. Right. And it's like, yeah, that's what we're saying. But why did for 2000 years, that was their number one proof. So what you're saying now is that for 2000 years, they had an incorrect proof of the globe Earth, because that's what they all said was, oh, when we see boats go out, we see them disappear over the edge. Well, they didn't have optics. They didn't have telescopes. They didn't have a Nikon P100 or P1000. So they couldn't zoom in and pick up the boat again, meaning that their assumption that boats were going over any kind of edge was wrong for thousands of years, if you would believe in their timeline.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so stupid, though, right? So like, the official story is that the perfect shape is a sphere. So they're like, oh, the Earth must be a sphere, and then, okay, let's do it like this. Let's use Polaris as an example. So you see Polaris, and you start going south, and you see that Polaris drops in the sky. Like as you get further away, you see different things above the horizon. And therefore, the Earth must be a sphere. Can you guys think of any other reason that would happen?
Nope. Sphere's the only one.
It's so stupid. It's like when people say, oh, the Greeks figured it out so many years. No, they didn't. They were retarded. Like
why wouldn't they test that? Like the whole sticks and shadows, or the wells and shadows. They're using something they have no idea, the sun. They have no idea how far away it is, what distance, any of that. So why would
really
they
hard
use
to believe,
that?
though? Isn't that really hard to believe? That whole one to me is just insane. Because what you're saying is that he measured the circumference of the Earth in 275 BC, and then it took them 1,700 years until somebody got in a boat and said, let's go west.
Yeah, it's just all so stupid, man. I like the reason I think it really might have all been made up is just so they can say,
yes,
we figured this out 1,000 years ago, just to make you look stupid.
Because if they did come out and said, oh, we just figured this out in 1600 or 1700, then people would question it. But if it's like, no, we've always known, for thousands of years we've known. Yeah,
you got like people. I forgot that dude's name, but going around that goofy sodomite dude. That's
there's a lot of those.
The guy that's like in charge of Canada.
Trudeau.
Yeah, talking about no one ever thought the Earth was flat. You're right.
Brian Cox said the same thing.
Okay. What? Yeah. That's just wild.
I mean, did they not go to school? That's one of the things I was taught in school. Was like, yeah, back in the day they thought the Earth was flat, but then Columbus proved it in 1492.
That's also so retarded. Like when you just step back and start thinking about it, it's all so dumb. Like, bro, you can't. No one in Greece looked down the street and realized that things change when they're further away from you. No one walked down the street and realized they could start to see more as they got closer.
Right. How is that person so much bigger than that person over there?
Well, have you ever seen too? And this is another lie I think they tell. Have you ever seen where they have the transition where they say before a certain date people couldn't draw in perspective, and then there's like a date that happened, and then all of a sudden everybody learned to draw perspective? But it's so retarded because you're like, but they couldn't look at the world. Nobody looked at. They just have pictures like Jesus with like his big old head up front, and then they have like him holding a baby. It's all big headed, and it's like they say that they know how to draw in perspective, which maybe is true. But I still think, well, couldn't they just look at the world? The world displays itself for you. So if you draw the world, you will draw in perspective. That's how it looks. But they don't get it. They don't get it. What do you think, Austin? I don't know if I've ever heard you mention this before. What do you think are the chances that the curve calculator of 8 inches per mile squared is simply that is the equation for perspective? That we lose things in the mathematics of 8 inches per mile. The idea of it being a perspective hijacking curve calculator, which we've heard forever, which I've always agreed with, but I'm just wondering how, like, that seems so simple of a deception, and people just can't see it. They all
Yeah, it's clearly very related to how we see for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I mean that slightly fluctuates.
Right, and that's why they have to do the 7.6R, because I think that we started to see too far with optics. You started to be able to see further than that, see through things. So then they had to add the that refraction number. Yeah, but the whole, Eratosthenes came within 1% with these measured shadows that, again, we don't even know how he traveled that far, or how they measured that distance, or it's even off. It's not even on the same meridian. So, yeah, it just seems like it's such a convoluted mess. And then you've got, what was it, Sagan, who does that show where he has that big piece of board and he has
this is the only way.
Right. So they all say that too. Like, this is absolutely the only way. And then he bends it and shows a, curve. But it's like, let's just get a smaller light source.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Well, I think it's pretty telling that they have to okay, I mean, this guy is supposedly such a genius. He figured out the Earth was a sphere, and he did so by saying, "Oh, the Earth's a sphere because the perfect shape is a sphere." Oh, bro, you're a freaking genius, man. And oh, the sky changes as you go north and south. Wow. I don't know. I went and researched. This is actually what they officially say. This is what did it for him. So,
wow.
Okay. So yeah, whether it's real or not, I mean, it's ridiculous. I would hope it's real because it's so stupid. But for those that say oh, the Greeks figured it out. I mean, how? I mean, the next thing that they'll say is that he looked out at a boat, and since you can't see the boat forever, he's like, oh, the Earth must be a sphere.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't the pentagram the perfect shape according to Pythagoras? It holds all of the Ken Wheeler's gone through that a bunch. When you divide this by that, it comes out to the golden ratio, half a pi or whatever. Pi squared, maybe, or not pi squared. I forget what it is. But yeah, Ken Wheeler's gone through it. The metaphysics of shapes and things like that, and the mathematics that go into it. He always says that, like the pentagram without the points on it, just that 5-sided, the pentagon is like the perfect shape, according to Ken Wheeler. And he goes into it, how when you divide it out and do all these different mathematics with it, it comes out to equal the golden ratio. Phi, not pi.
Yeah, I've heard him talk about that. Yeah. Well, okay, so the Greeks, we might as well just actually end the show. I didn't even realize that this is so definitive. So stupid. All right, let's go to the next one, I guess. So you said 275. I got 250 on here. Oh, no. Yeah, okay. No. Yeah, whatever. So 250 BC, we have this distance to the sun. So it said that in 250 BC, Aristarchus used the quarter moon phase to determine the distance to the sun, guessing the angle and estimating that the moon is 1/3 as wide as the Earth. Wow. This
is so disgusting too. I've told people this one before. It's like so imagine there's a half moon right now. You look outside, half moon. Okay, great. And you say, okay, well, that's a half moon. So now we know that the sun is angled to 90 degrees to that half moon. Okay, I'll give him that. Then we have to now figure out our angle to the sun. But even just saying that to me, I'm like, well, what do you mean? How would you figure that out? What, the sun at sunrise or sunset or at when it's above my head? What do you mean? How can I measure my angle to the sun with the moon there half? And then he came up with 87 degrees, and they say, oh, he was off. It was actually 89 point something. But it's like, how would you calculate that angle? If it's 90 degrees to the moon, then you're telling me our angle is 89 point something. It doesn't seem like something anybody would be able to calculate back then. Maybe I'm off. Maybe I don't know. I just think these are all stories.
No, they are stories, but it just goes to show you how weak the globe model is itself. Because if they're reverse engineering stories and this is still the best they can come up with, then the globe just sucks, right? Like it's got nothing, man. I'm just saying. Then it says here, the assumption that during a half moon, the 3 celestial bodies should form a right angle. He guessed that the sun was 19 times as far from the Earth as the moon and 19 times as big. So, yeah, that's science,
That's a huge assumption right there. Why couldn't it be just a little bit further away and the right angle? I don't understand why it would have to be a right angle, because the moon, you're only seeing half the moon. The sun could be much closer and making that lighting on the moon and, not be a right angle to you. The right angle would be at the moon.
I'm going to show something real quick, Austin, if you could share my screen. Just because I want people, if they want to find this, am I going to be able to find it? Where is it? Oh, here we go. Is this it? Yeah, I think so. So there's a website, dioi.org, and they are these scientific debunkers. They actually write peer-reviewed papers or whatever. And this one's all about Eratosthenes and how, they basically said they think it's a story, that it's not real. Because, again, here you're talking about Eratosthenes' sun. It says, remarkably, Eratosthenes had the moon's distance almost 1/5 of the sun's, which goes counter to easy visual checks since his 19 to 100 ratio were true. Half moons would occur when the moon was more than 10 degrees from quadrature. So they actually are able to show that based on his other supposed writings that he couldn't possibly have also believed the story that they tell. You can see right here, inventing the experiment. So the idea of him doing the six and shadows has been pretty much destroyed based on his other, here they can figure out what it should have been and how his, how he thought the sun was close and how he thought the moon was only 1/5 the distance. And so it's just a great read. And if you go to, see if I go back one, this is all their debunkings of various scientific things throughout time. The greatest faker of antiquity is probably Ptolemy. Yeah, they say Ptolemy completely faked his entire Almagest, and it's still fooling him. He says, people in current science won't look at their foundations. Their foundations are wrong. Now, these guys, for the most part, still believe everything. It's not like they're flat earthers. It's not like they're geocentrists. They are fully heliocentrists, but they at least go through and, here, Venus versus Venus. The greatest astronomer of antiquity's sloppiness with the Venus swindles was so extreme that he inadvertently reports having firsthand observed the same event. So anyway, they go through and show you that these things, the stories that they tell about scientific history are fabrications. Now, they still believe it, or they still believe the current science, but they destroy Ptolemy. They destroy a lot of these things.
Do they say who made Venus our sister planet? Just decided that, hey, Venus is the same size as Earth.
Well, that was, what's his name? That was the Huygens, right? Huygens is the one who made that assumption, and then they did the whole transit.
Based everything off that, though.
Yeah. There's a slide about that. Just so ridiculous.
Okay.
Tycho's revelation of Ptolemy's fraudulence ended a millennium of misastronomy and demonstrated a century into the future the magic of astronomy. Modern science establishment can't cease deliberately pushing a laughable lie. Massive faker, thief, fumbling astrologer, Claudius Ptolemy, the greatest astronomer of antiquity. So anyway, there's a myth, hoax, flat earth, occultist. Oh, this is just them calling somebody a flat earther. But anyway, it's good to look at if people are into researching. Go to dioi.org, and they have papers that they've been putting out for years. There's a DIOI booklet page, right? So you can go to different volumes that they've put out throughout the years. And you can tell why they don't get much press or anything, because they like call people names and they're very rude, and it's kind of right up your alley. You'd like this, but anyway, yeah, check it out. They've got editors, and it's like peer reviewed. And here we go. What does it say about geocentric method? Program for Thurston geocentric method. Anyway, I know there's people out there that like to look into this stuff, so check it out. dioi.org.
Very
cool.
Sharing.
Very cool. Drop the link, brother.
We'll do that.
All right. So yeah, this is obviously called pseudoscience. So it's not even worthy of that, to be honest. But okay, so we'll pop up to what they say. 240 BC is what I have here. Lacking primary documentation of any sort. It's said that Eratosthenes noted that the water wells and pillars in the city of Syene did not cast a shadow at noon on the summer solstice. Yet 500 miles away at the same time, the shadows were long and drawn out. Assuming the Earth a sphere, the light rays from the sun to be parallel, and the sun to be infinitely far away, he calculated the circumference of the assumed spherical Earth. Wow, man, he's crushing, dude.
And wasn't he pretty close? What was his estimation off by? How many percent?
Not a lot.
1.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's no primary documentation of this happening at all. And then the two supposed existing documentations literally say different things.
Yeah, they've actually said, those people on DIOI, they say that that our our distance for a stade, is that what they're called? Stadia or whatever,
Yep.
is basically they've adjusted that to make sure that Eratosthenes is correct. So like
Wow.
everything else is wrong with it, but now he's correct. But they say no, that it probably wasn't that. It probably didn't even. Well, they actually make it some that if you add refraction and do all these things, then it's actually closer to what they actually think the stage should be. But anyway, it's just more fabrication. And you're right. There's no primary evidence, and there's just people who are down the road. And I've talked about this before. Herodotus was the Library of Alexandria librarian after Eratosthenes, and he wrote books and he never mentions Eratosthenes, which is insane. It's like I said, it's like you went to you played basketball for North Carolina, then you went on to the NBA and played for the Bulls, and then you write a book and you don't include Michael Jordan in there. That would be people would be like, what the hell's going on? How's that possible?
That's my favorite analogy that you give.
Yeah.
It's like writing about the 90s Bulls championship and leaving out Michael Jordan.
Right. This would make a lot of sense.
Let me shout out KC Industries channel here. So go sub to Caleb on YouTube. If I can actually get to it here.
Yeah, Caleb, put your link in there.
So dropping it in GLOBEBUSTERS YouTube and the Telegram. So go show him some love and sub. All right, cool. I also dropped this PowerPoint in the GLOBEBUSTERS Telegram if you want to follow along. All right, so yeah, Eratosthenes is obviously just ridiculous. It's probably the number one thing that we hear. I mean, there's an entire playlist on the app about it, right? Like there's a whole playlist I was asking for the other day, and yeah, I hear a little bit
your
of
response.
oh to Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah, I asked for it. He said you can go to the FAQ page on Flat Earth, Sky, Sun, Cosmos, True Earth app. He thinks he's funny. I said, man, and there's a good playlist that has all the stuff about Eratosthenes on there if you want to check it out. And I said, what would I do without the flat Earth, stationary, geocentric, topographical, plane, geostatic, compass, gyroscopic, level, horizontal, ether, vortex, magnetic declination, zodiac, astrology, calendar, clock app?
Nailed it.
But yeah, so if you want some more info on that and the guy showing how you can make the table a sphere with math and the light source, go check that out. All right, cool. So that's obviously the number one we get. It's just all ridiculous. No primary documentation. The story itself just doesn't make any sense. It's ridiculous. So, all right. Then we get all the way. This is the interesting part, right? So we go from 240 all the way to 1492 before we get the first globe model, which is wild. I don't know how to pronounce this. The Nuremberg terrestrial globe is the oldest existing scale model of Earth, known as the Earth Apple. It was created around 1492 by German explorer Martin Behem and painter something. Coincidentally, this is the same year Christopher Columbus allegedly utilized the globe idea to quote unquote discover the Americas on accident. So that's pretty cool, huh?
And when was Al Biruni's map made? Let me see.
I don't know.
Al Biruni. He was born in 973.
It says
1040 AD.
1029 AD is what it says.
So they had plenty of time. I mean, they had the whole Earth pretty much mapped out, right? As far as they knew, up to the edges of the Antarctic. Why couldn't they make it a globe? It took them over 400 years.
Well, what's weird is like I just looked this up, Al Biruni's world map. This is what it shows. Oh, it looks flat to me, bro. Is that a globe? What is that?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, yeah, and I remember Jeran's actually where I heard that this is the first real like physical globe model all the way in the 1400s.
Yeah, I think there's no globe before that, which is ridiculous because I mean, imagine if Eratosthenes in 250 BC is measuring the circumference of the Earth, then right away people would have said, "Oh, okay, then let's start mapping the Earth on a ball." not wait 1700 years. Sorry.
Yeah, it's insane.
It doesn't make any sense. It's the same thing, like I said, about going west. If he really knew that it was that wide or that large, then they would have known, oh, well, wait a second. We know that India is only, say, 5,000 miles that way. So let's get on the boats and go that way and see what happens. Let's just go out there and check. But they make it seem like it wasn't until Columbus came along. And then, the whole story with Columbus discovering the earth was a ball, and then they've like changed that. Now they're like, oh no, it's actually some writer whose fault it was. Like, what? You just let some writer tell a fake story and then it took over the whole world? It doesn't make any sense.
And they never.
That's
I
what
mean,
I say.
they were.
You don't
by
believe
the
in
pyramids.
Columbus anymore. They don't say Columbus knew the earth was round. They knew it for thousands of years. But it's like, well, why were we all told that?
Yeah, dude, all of us remember being told that.
Yeah, that was what they told us. And then you can watch like Disney cartoons about it, and I mean that was the story.
Dude, Nikola Tesla has a quote about it. The one time he talks about the Earth being a globe, he's like, "Oh well, we know it's a globe because Christopher Columbus utilized the Copernican model to discover the Americas." So Tesla was taught about it in school. I know I was taught about it in school.
Yep. Oh, it's all some author's fault. I forgot what they said. Washington Irving's fault.
So
Maybe
it's
that's
that
why
easy.
they won't sell the school books. Have you ever tried to buy one of your old school books?
No, but the other thing I've been looking at lately is I've been trying to find the like nautical almanacs from back in the day. I wanted to see how much locations have changed, distances. You cannot find those. Once they come out with the new updated version, the old ones are gone.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very difficult to find. You can't find I wish I could find like a Mariner's Almanac from 1920 or something.
So if just one writer can write something wrong and then that spills over into propagandizing millions of people for decades, is it possible that there are other things we're being taught about in history
never.
that
Everything else is directly on point.
just one writer? It never made sense anyway. It's like, oh, he utilized the globe to discover the place that he didn't mean to get to.
Right. And then he didn't figure out how far he went. Couldn't he have if he knew that it was 25,000 miles in circumference, didn't he know he only went 3,000 miles across the Atlantic? How did he think he hit India?
It's just weird. They're like it's like the whole idea is that he thought he was in India, but he was in America. That's why I called them Indians, right? That's the story. And it's like, okay, so then you can't say, oh, well, this proved the globe because I used the globe to navigate. You didn't successfully navigate. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so stupid. What am I missing here?
Yeah, you were supposed
accidentally
to
went
go
there.
20,000 miles and you went 3.
It's like evidence against the globe. If this dude used a globe to navigate, it didn't work. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just so stupid. It's so wild. I'm thinking, what do you guys think? I think this is probably around when the idea actually started getting pushed. Right? Like, I think this is I think it's closer to this time frame that people started even trying to theorize the idea that the Earth was a sphere.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I have a lot more. Okay, I'll give a lot more credibility to this time period than the 2000s. I mean, 2,000 years ago. I mean,
And
the
then it
whole
starts to
Dark
make
Ages
sense.
thing. How long
Right.
was it? Like 900 years? Nobody wrote anything or painted anything or sculpted anything.
You know
at
how humans
all?
are. They're just lazy. They sit around. They don't do a lot.
Like anywhere on Earth. They just all decided to take a break. Everybody, come
Yeah,
on.
we're still evolving. But you know what's so crazy, man? It's like, was this even really made then, though? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it could have been made in the 1700s, this little globe. It could have been made in the 1800s.
Yeah.
And why is the date 1492?
Why is it the same? It's just so suspect, man.
Yeah, it's really bad.
And I guess there's those few slides right there already debunk this whole notion, this gaslighting technique that people use. Like, oh, we've known the Earth was a sphere for thousands of years. That just isn't true. I'm just saying, we don't got to lie a lot when you're telling the truth. We can pop up here to 1543. We have the Copernican model. So it said that Copernicus proposed the heliocentric model, making observations of the sky with his naked eye. He allegedly did this because the math was simpler. In fact, he was quite clear it was simply a model to provide mathematical simplicity founded merely in theoretics.
And that's actually a lie. It's actually not easier.
No, it actually required way more epicycles.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, which are corrections. Yeah.
And didn't he not even put this out? Like, it was put out after he died, correct?
Well, on his deathbed, they say, which is, believe that if you want.
Everything about the globe story is so suspect, bro.
Deathbed. Okay, am I ready to die? Okay, can you go underneath my bed? I have a written book about the world, but I couldn't release it until I was ready to die.
It's hard to get to the bottom of it too, because like when you start looking into these people, it's like, oh well, there's this writing attributed to him that was hidden that says that he denounces heliocentrism. And
there's the beginning of it that it came out with his preface, and they just assumed he wrote it. But then they say it was Osiander, the publisher, that he actually. Can you imagine giving your book to a publisher and saying, "Here, can you publish this book?" And then he says, "Sure," and then he writes the forward for you.
Yeah, let me just write the first thing they read.
I'm gonna go ahead and put this out. Not even sign my name to it. I'm just gonna write a forward to a preface for you and send it out. There you go. Sorry about that. That I put that it's not for you. If you believe this, you're gonna end up a greater fool than you started.
Like, did these people really just sit in a room in like the 1800s and have a couple glasses of cognac? Like, let's just make up history.
I think so. Seriously.
I don't put that past them.
When it comes to the globe, right, it certainly looks that way. It certainly looks like it's just stupid, man. I don't know. To me, this is not anything I can prove, right? It's like pattern recognition. But if all of your stories have things that are just fundamentally retarded, like they just don't make sense, and they're all too good to be true, like, okay. Maybe
look at it. We didn't discover the pyramids supposedly until what, the 1815, or I forget the exact date. Or was it later than that?
I don't know that.
It's not like we've known about them for
about
5,000 years. You know,
there are conspiracies about those being built recently.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, there's nothing you can bank on from the past. I mean, we know that the printing press came out. I don't know the exact year. I'm going to say 1500, but it's around there. But so before that, every book would have been handwritten. There was no way to. There wasn't a printing of a book. So when people say, "Well, what's the oldest book we have?" It's like, well, what's the oldest book that you see that's handwritten? Because if it's not handwritten, then it's not older than 1500. It's not before the printing press. So it's kind of like you just have to go along with the story. You have to believe it, and then you've got all these historians who all are going to back each other. Again, you're not going to. They tell the story like, "Oh, if you go against the grain, you'll become rich. Oh, if you're the first scientist who says the Earth is flat, you'll become rich." Like, no, you won't. You'll be fired and be laughed at. It's not going to quite go the way you think it is.
Yeah, it says the 1830s. They just one of the first notable discoveries occurred in the 1830s.
Wow, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, have you guys noticed that all the pictures of these guys are highly suspect? Like, if you saw this guy, you'd be like totally weirded out. Like, you know what I'm saying? If this dude was looking at me like this, I'd be like, bro, we're gonna have to throw hands or something. You're gonna give me some seriously weird.
You guys wouldn't let him babysit for you guys?
Well, like, why are you holding that thing like that, bro? And why are you looking like that? It's
why
just
all holding the compasses. It's so weird.
They're like just sitting there like it's not awkward and just staring at you like they have no soul, you know? Like, I don't know. It's kind of weird. I mean, if you really think about it, this reminds me of the anti-flat earthers, you know? It's like, it's the people that, well, dude, they just weren't, you know, you didn't really want to talk to them in high school, right? They were just.
It kind of looks like Craig a little bit.
It's the 1500 version of Craig.
It's high school Craig.
It is. He's sitting down and everything. I'm just saying that, like, it's weird. You know, like it does seem to have this weirdo kind of niche, but anyway, that doesn't make the Earth.
That's not proof of anything. Come on.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out this dude looks kind of weird. Like, you shouldn't trust him around children or something. But all right, I think I have his quote here. Yeah, here it is. He says, quote, "The Pythagorean teaching of heliocentrism was founded upon the hypothesis, and it is not necessary that this hypothesis should be true or even probable. The hypothesis of the movement of the Earth is only one which is useful to explain certain phenomena, but it should not be considered as an absolute truth." And that's Copernicus on the revolutions of the celestial spheres.
Yep.
What in the? I mean, science, bro. But he proved it. And what did he prove it with? His naked eye. This dude didn't even have a telescope.
And why not?
Well, they haven't figured out how to look back in time yet, bro.
When was Galileo?
1615, around there. So this is real quick. This is a forward from Osiander. I'll just read the last paragraph. It says, "Therefore, alongside the ancient hypotheses, which are no more probable, let us permit these new hypotheses also to become known, especially since they are admirable as well as simple and bring with them a huge treasure of very skillful observations. So far as hypotheses are concerned, let no one expect anything certain from astronomy, which cannot furnish it. lest he accept as truth ideas conceived for another purpose, and depart from the study a greater fool than when he entered it. Farewell. So he's basically telling you don't accept it. We're just coming up with a mathematical way to explain the movements of these items, but don't think that it's true. Or else you're taking something that's meant for another. And then what do we believe now? We believe it is all true.
Yeah, it's and people actually say it like you're stupid if you don't believe it.
Oh, that's the most baffling thing to me is that they've never even seen the sphere. Can you imagine yelling at somebody, calling them stupid, calling them retarded? All the things that we get called when these people, all they are, were told something. So they were told something, and they're like, "Oh, you don't believe what I was told? Then you're an idiot." Like what?
And they don't even really know anything we're talking about.
No. Nothing at all.
The second best Bob, 5 pounds, I guess that is. I just found star almanacs for sale from the 1920s. You lied.
Star almanacs for the 1920s. You lied. Show them to me for sale. I was not looking for anything for sale, but I was looking for them for free. But yeah, I would love a link.
I don't think Jeran suggested that all physical copies of almanacs are burned every year. And that you can never get a hold of them. I don't think.
But I'll show you the guide I'm talking about, and then you can go look for, like, I think they're on edition 45 right now, or 55, something like that. So go find me edition 7 or 12 or 11 or 36. I'll get you a link for you. Second best Bob.
Someone says, I'm inclined to believe all this historical data is most likely a load of crap. Well, yeah, I mean, that's clearly what we're saying. What we're saying is, if it isn't, it's still ridiculous, right? Like, if all of this is true, just look at, like, what? Like, this dude denounced it, said it wasn't real, said it was just simple, naked eye observations, just a theory. It's not even important that it's true or even probable. Don't assume it to be absolute truth. That's not what we're suggesting. These people on their deathbed actually said they denounced the ideas. And that's with the quote unquote historical documentation that we have. So, like, did they maybe doctor it? Certainly it does appear that way. If they did it, it's still just ridiculous, right? Like, it's just exposing it, even granting that it was true. Because, yeah, so really all we can do, right? I mean, like, I can tell you one thing, man. If I was to be kidnapped and held at gunpoint and someone forced my daughter to be in public school, she would be taught this stuff, right? So I guess that's kind of the point. We still got to address it. All right. Now we have 1609, Kepler's laws. Using Tycho Brahe's geocentric model and data, Kepler proposed his idea of planetary motion and the laws that govern this phenomena. Tycho Brahe was in fact the tutor of Kepler. Kepler claimed the motion in the sky was governed by acoustics. Kepler expressly acknowledged all theories of the spherical nature of Earth and heliocentrism were strictly built upon philosophy. Yeah, I have a quote from Kepler. He says, "I've demonstrated by ways of philosophy that the Earth is a sphere that's moving."
By acoustics.
Now, that's what's so crazy is I think he's right about that.
And what all did they really know about acoustics back in 1609? I've never really looked into the history of acoustics. I know there were instruments, but like, as far as...
Well, that's all you would need, right? Like say you had a harp. You could play a harp and realize, like, oh, this harp vibrates and moves the air around it. So in theory, if something's vibrating, it causes things to move, right?
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, levitating things, like, I don't, yeah, it's wild.
Well, of course, he's saying that the sun's in the center of the entire universe. It's basically singing this celestial song, this heavenly song, and then all the planets are moving within that acoustic. But I'm just saying, personally, I think that there's some truth to that, right? The Earth's a stationary plane. Everything still moves around us. So there's something causing it. And yeah, I think what people call gravity is like an emergent property due to oscillations or vibrations. So there may be something to the acoustic thing, ironically, but yeah. Anyway, and so, like, Tycho Brahe, of course, is the one who actually made all the observations, right? And Kepler just kind of waited for him to die, took it, and then theory that he actually killed him, took his work, and then claimed that actually the sun was in the center. So,
wow.
Now, that guy you sent me the Facebook link to, Jeran, right? This guy's saying, like, how retrograde shows that the Earth goes around the sun, all this stuff, and I'm like,
right?
No, actually, there's a kinematic equivalence of a neo-Tychonian model. If the Earth's in the center, you can have retrograde very easily. So Kepler's laws can be applied with a stationary Earth, right? A geocentric stationary Earth. Because, Kepler's laws are just kinematics. just geometry. It's like this moves in relation to this. Austin walks around the pole, right? It's like the planets move with this ratio in relation to each other. The ratio is real. Based on observations, there is like a ratio of how everything moves around each other, right? So,
Well, yeah, I mean, it's real easy to explain retrograde on flat Earth. Just think of it as look at a wave. It starts low, it goes up and has a peak, and then comes back down. Now, just think of like a ball or something rolling on that wave. As it's moving along that peak going up, it's going to slow down a little bit. And then as it comes back down, it's going to speed back up and start going the same speed as everything else. So to our eyes, it looks like it's going up and doing this loop because it's losing speed compared to the other stars behind it, moving the same speed. But it's just slowing down a little bit and going up, and then it comes back down and speeds back up and starts going the same speed it was going before. So it's really not doing a loop in the sky. It just appears that way because we base it on the stars moving behind it, if that makes any sense.
yeah, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I look at it like it looks like the planets may actually move in relation to the sun. I think that they're at different layers above us, like as in different altitudes. And yeah, I think they may actually move in relation to the sun on its ecliptic. But
And real quick, just second best, Bob, site reduction tables. We're on number 229. So find me any edition prior to 229. Find me number 111, 117, 145, number 45, number 37. Thank you.
Brunette Latina. Wow. $20 super chat. I'm a new subscriber. Thank you, speakers, for putting your time for the channel. Not a problem.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, thank you for subbing and hope you enjoy the content. And I don't know where you're at, but if you're near the equator, will you go do a pendulum test, please? Okay.
Set up a Foucault's pendulum real quick.
All right. So that's Kepler's laws. So we have 1659, the Venus estimation. So in 1659, Christian Huygens allegedly used the newly invented telescope to determine the astronomical unit by guessing that the diameter of Venus was the same size as the Earth. He allegedly got within 5% of the currently accepted astronomical value.
How?
Let's just really break this down, okay? This dude, these brilliant men that used to be rocks, they evolved and decided that they were going to put some glass inside of tubes and they were going to be able to look back into time. Okay. So they started looking back in time with glass and they thought, okay, you see that Venus? I bet the Earth is the exact same size as Venus. Where did they get that?
Lucky guess.
What? I've never even heard an apologist answer to that. It's literally just that they just made it up. Like they just needed a point of reference. So they said, oh, well, we'll just say Venus is probably the same size as the Earth. And then luckily got it correct.
Yeah.
What, dude?
What if they came up with all that math and everything, and then after they went up and saw it was different, they'd be like, oh.
Well, yeah, the only time they could test it is when they sent a probe, right?
That's what would happen, though. If you picked one of them out and you're like, let's just say the Earth's the same size as this, you would for sure be wrong. Dude, this is one of the biggest tells to me if you have pattern recognition, right? They put all this energy into the math, like mathematically building the model based on this assumption that Venus is the same size as the Earth. The fact that they didn't go back on it proves it's all BS. I mean, like,
yeah, right there.
Yeah, because they would have to go back on everything that they did. And they're like, no. You know,
Everything. If you don't know this, everything is based on this guy's guess. Like all the Newton's theories of gravity and all that kind of stuff is all based on him saying that this was the same size as Earth. Then they said, oh, if that's the same size, it has this size, it has roughly this mass, and then, you know, well, then the sun would be this size, and then this planet would be this size, and these would all be this size because they knew the size of this right here, of Venus. This guy just made it up. And that's what the whole mathematical model is based on right there. And he just happened to be right from 1659. I'm not buying that.
Doesn't this guy also look like someone you can't trust? I mean, just saying, bro. Yeah,
They're
I don't
all
know.
like that. All like that.
Yeah, man, this dude's wearing a wig, bro. I don't trust him at all. But like, what's crazy is that this is like most people don't even know this. Well, when they're building this heliocentric model, they looked up in the sky, they saw a light, and they said, we're going to call that Venus. And we're going to say that's probably the same exact size as the Earth. And then they built the entire model based off that with the ratios of everything, assuming that it's the same size. They had to use Venus, the way it moves in relation to everything else, then apply it to the Earth, assuming it's the same size. And they claim to have gotten within just coincidentally, it actually is within 5% exactly the same. I don't know.
No
To me,
way.
that's wild. That's so wild, bro.
Yeah, Lisa, exactly. Ridiculously stupid.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, why don't they tell you this in school?
No, I never heard this. And when I go looking for it, it's not easy to find. Who discovered the size of Venus? It doesn't just pop up in Google. It's like they don't want people looking at this.
No.
Yeah, it's just so wild.
And again, this is the other thing is that when even if they know the size and then they're going to go do observations of its transit in front of the sun, you have to send somebody thousands of miles away, which back then would have taken months. And the guys sail on a boat to get, 6,000 miles away. And then they have to measure these times with pendulum clocks. They didn't even have watches. They didn't have any timekeeper besides, it's 3.5 swings of the pendulum. What did you get, Jim? I got 3 1/4. All right. Well, then we know the distance to the sun. What? Doesn't jive to me.
No.
Well, I mean, and they actually say that it was like a transit of Venus in like the 1700s when they were able to first really like accurately measure the sizes. So that's what's so weird. It's like, wait, so like you didn't even know the size, but you assumed that the Earth was the same size and built your whole model off of it?
Right.
They claim it was like 17 something.
Yeah, so he didn't even see the transit.
No, they say he died before he did.
Yep.
Wow.
It's just they always have these, it's just like when Tycho said, well, what you're saying can't be true, or else the stars have to be an infinite distance away. So then they're like, kill you. The stars are an infinite distance away. That's worked out well.
Oh, man. Okay, well, let's move on, I guess. 1666. Gravity. I was pointing this out the other night. I'm like, when people say Newton discovered gravity, like he didn't discover anything, man. Like he saw something fall. Believe it or not, people already knew that happened.
Right. he's the brilliant one who said the moon must be doing the same. Look up there. It's definitely falling like that apple is.
Dude, the fact that we attribute this to some type of earth-shattering discovery, the story is that he saw an apple fall. Like, no way. Things fall down. He discovered that things fall down.
Dude, could you imagine him running through town? Look, just throwing apples.
Yeah, the apple falls. Yeah. You're crazy, bro. In 1666, Isaac Newton apparently had an epiphany as an apple fell from a tree. Newton proposed the first attempted dynamic force to explain the orbit of planets. He made it abundantly clear that he could not even think of any theoretical mechanism other than a direct act of God himself. He was a major proponent of an ether, attempting to explain gravity as a byproduct of this dense fluid-like medium without impedance. Which is something else you'll never be taught, which is that he writes extensively about there having to be an ether that's akin to like liquid silver that has an insane density, but it doesn't have any resistance or impedance.
Like helium-3?
Like superfluid, exactly, yeah.
Under super low pressures and temperatures?
Yeah, yep, exactly. Superfluid, super dense, but no impedance, which is resistance to flow.
That is so weird how it does that, how it'll go from the gas and then the liquid doesn't go to the bottom, it floats in the middle. When you showed that video, I still think about that all the time. I'm trying to think of, what's happening there. Like,
yeah,
why
it's
is it doing that?
Well, it's so funny how Jeran just put it. Just the apple fell, and Isaac Newton was such a genius. He looked up and he's like, "I bet the moon is doing that."
Which one? The one staying still up in the sky? Yeah.
Yeah, the one that's specifically not doing that. Like, what? The moon's falling towards us for sure. That's why it keeps just coming around us.
I'll never believe anything Isaac Newton said. The guy never had sex, so therefore I just can't look to him for any kind of advice or anything. Sorry.
Oh yeah, that sucks because now you got to exclude Tesla too. So
Was he a priest?
True.
Was he clergy?
Yeah.
A member of the clergy?
No, he just didn't like women or something.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, and I will say, the story of Isaac Newton is highly suspect, right? I mean, this dude supposedly developed calculus as well. In his spare time, he just developed calculus. And
Yeah, it just came up.
it's like, he did like all this like before he was like 20 something.
And he did all kinds of things, predicted the end of the world with doing all kinds of math and numerology in the Bible. And yeah, he did all kinds of crazy things. What is it called? I was going to say meteorology, but what is the stuff that you do when you're messing around with quicksilver and mercury?
Oh, alchemy.
Alchemy.
I couldn't get the word.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he
was
was
trying to make
alchemist.
the Philosopher's Stone playing with mercury. They say that's how he died, isn't it?
That's what they say, yeah.
Mercury.
That's what they say. Yeah. You know what's crazy? It's like over 90% of his writings were like spiritual or religious. So I mean, like almost all of them. Like even when he wrote about alchemy, he always talked about God. Most of his writings were like religious based, but they don't even tell you that at all. I mean, this is like an atheist hero in a way, right? Like gravity, heliocentrism, we're a tiny speck of dust. I promise I'm not important. How dare you tell me I'm special type thing, you know? Like this guy was just always talking about God. He was like, gravity's not possible unless it's God. So he literally just said, the only thing I can even think of is it's a direct act of God himself, you know, and they'll never tell you that. They'll never tell you this guy's real beliefs or whatever. But also what's interesting is his equation has no time variable, meaning it has to be instant. So gravity, quote unquote, has to be instant according to Newton. There's no time variable, right, in his equation. So that was one of the major things. He's like, only God could do this. You know, like how could you have instantaneous action at a distance effectively over these insane distances that people are claiming with, for one, no medium to exchange it? And how could it be instant? And he's like, it has to be God doing it. And he's like, basically saying, I don't even understand it. I don't actually fully believe it. I can't even make sense of it unless it's just God. So that's the reality. But so anyway, 1666, 666 newtons on the Earth. The apple fell.
Well, I would agree with him then. They're an act of God. I mean, whatever's causing this flow coming down from above, that's always there, always happening. I would say it's an act of the Creator.
Well, yeah, I think the presence of the primary source itself, yeah, is what's causing everything for sure. Yeah, and like Tesla would say, yeah, you have luminiferous ether, and then you have like the primary mover, right? You have the prana, the life-giving force or energy. So yeah, I will say when you start reading Newton yourself, and again, take it or leave it, right? Could this dude be real? Could he be like a Shakespeare character? Could most of these people basically just be Shakespeare characters? I think so, right? But when you really start going and reading it, he was pretty based. Like Newton was actually kind of based. So
I've read the Principia before. It's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, he says some base things, right? I mean, like, so I'm curious what you guys think about this, right? So we go one option. It's like, oh, well, these were real philosophers and people and trying to figure it out, right? Back in the day, people understood that science is joined at the hip with philosophy, right? That's why that's the name of his book and stuff. But so like, that's the one option. These people were really just trying to figure it out, and then they got caught up in the math, and then blah blah blah. These are real people, real stories, authentic documentation, blah blah. Second one is basically that they backfiled history, right? Which we've caught them doing at this point. We just talked about how they taught everyone this thing about Christopher Columbus, which wasn't true. So when I think about it from that angle, I think, okay, well then the only reason that they would have made these people say such base things is because the people of the time were just more based. So like you couldn't really deceive those people unless you were relatively intelligent and based. Like you can deceive people now with like a TikTok video, right? But back in the day, if you just read like letters from farmers, it's like Nobel laureates now. You know what I'm saying? So does that make sense? Am I making sense? Like where I used to think like, this doesn't make sense to me that these would be just characters that they made, because if you read some of the stuff they say, it's so based, or like this can only be possible with the creator. You know, even if you start reading Tesla stuff, you start reading some of the stuff, you're like, well, this doesn't make sense for them to put this in here, right? Because it's detrimental to their current plan. But then I think like, oh, well, you couldn't have even proposed this guy was alive back then or pushed out his writings back then unless he had like a decent amount of intellect and like sound reason.
Right. So
I think that does kind of explain why maybe there's stuff in there that we would consider detrimental to their propaganda now. But, you know, I don't know. To me, I don't think you'll ever know. Like you guys agree that it seems very likely that like Shakespeare was just a made up character.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, what did he say? The world is a stage?
Right. Well, you know, there's like the amount of words that he came up with, new words to the language. I think he added 4,000 words to the English language.
Like the Jim Morrison of his time.
Crazy.
4,000, dude.
I'll look it up. I think Shakespeare is responsible for 4,000 English words that he just came up with himself, and then people that caught on. It just seems like it's all by design.
Well, yeah, because he wasn't writing to. It was more almost like not even poetry. Iambic pentameter is what they use. So it had to be like da dun da dun da dun da dun da dun da dun da dun.
1,700 words. So William Shakespeare used more than 20,000 words total in his plays, and his works provide the first recorded use of 1,700 words in the English language.
Wow, that dude was confident.
He just thrown out words. And they list all these words like alligator, bedroom, critic, downstairs, eyeball.
Alligator? He just naming animals?
Yeah. I thought Adam did that. What's going on here?
Whoa. It's funny. It's a good time to bring in the joke. Someone said Newton and Eve would be best friends forever. Yeah, they would only be friends. He would eternally be in the friend zone. Right.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's like alligator was probably alligatoria or something like that. But in order for it to hit the iambic pentameter, the right amount of syllables, he would cut it down.
So then why wouldn't we just ignore him as being retarded though? Like, why would we be like, oh yes, let's change the words because this guy decided to write a poem? You know, like, that's weird. I don't know. Yeah, it looks like it's what's his name? Francis Bacon.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Sir Walter Raleigh. There's a few of them that they say wrote stuff and.
Yeah, I think it was just a group of people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think.
There'd be no eyeball is one of them. Generous, good riddance, in a pickle. It's Greek to me. Lonely.
In a pickle.
In a pickle.
Manager, radiance, star-crossed lovers, swagger, undress, wild goose chase, to thine own self be true. All those are first time ever used by him.
And there's some dumb phrases, so it probably is like the group of people that wanted to kind of dumb people down and control it. You know? Well, all right. And so, yeah, obviously a lot of people point out the convenience of the year here, right? Like 1666, you got 666 newtons. That's the value for gravity on the Earth, right? 6.66 or 666 newtons. So, yeah, I mean, maybe a coincidence, but this year seemed to be very significant. This is the first year that the Selenian eclipse was recorded. But okay, yeah. So we all know about that. I just wanted to point out a couple of things, right? He wrote about gravity a lot. He most of his writings were about God. He was really big into alchemy. Allegedly, that's how he died. He supposedly did all kinds of incredible intellectual feats by the time he was like 22, including inventing calculus. And then people say he discovered gravity. He didn't discover anything. He saw an apple fall, and believe it or not, he wasn't the first one to do that. And his actual equations don't have a time variable, which means that this idea of gravity had to be instantaneous. He said it could not happen unless there was some type of medium. Whether that medium was material or immaterial, he left up to the consideration of his readers. But that anyone that would think that just some force innate in gravity would act on another piece of matter through the vastness of a vacuum over great distances, you know, is such a great absurdity that no man, with competency in philosophical matters could ever fall into it. So, all right, cool. So that's 666. That's a big portion of everything. If we kind of look at it, we got Copernican model. We got Kepler saying like, oh, well, here's the kinematics, which is just how bodies move in relation to each other. So the planets move in these ellipses around these orbits, blah, 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 blah. Then you have gravity, which is the dynamics. So that's 60 years or so, 57 years later, you have Newton coming up with the first idea of what causes them to move around each other. And it didn't really work. He said he didn't even really believe it, couldn't even wrap his mind around it, had to be instant, blah, blah, blah. All right, so covered that. Newton was very clear. Newton was very clear that any man with competent thinking whatsoever would never believe such an absurd notion that gravity as some force acts on matter through great distances without a medium to facilitate the interaction. He also made it very clear that the Earth could, in fact, simply be at rest and geocentric. And here's his quote about that. Quote, in order for the Earth to be at rest in the center of the system of the sun, planets, and comets, there is required both universal gravity and another force in addition that acts on all bodies equally according to the quantity of matter in each of them, and is equal and opposite to the accelerative gravity with which the Earth tends to the sun, and thus celestial bodies can move around the Earth at rest, as in the Tychonic system. And that's Isaac Newton himself saying that the Earth could be in the center. Oh man, you're saying if there's an equal and opposite reaction, then the Earth could be in the center? That's crazy. No way. I thought gravity was the one thing that doesn't do that. So anyway, this is another one of the quotes that get completely removed. Right? This was on page.
You're taking that out of context.
Yeah, cherry picking, quote mining.
You're not allowed to use quotes against. He believed in the sphere. Don't you know that?
Yeah.
Sure you know
So you're a Glober now, huh, Austin?
Right. Not the first time you heard that one. I'm taking it.
And then here is another quote from Isaac Newton. May not planets and comets and all gross bodies perform their motions more freely and with less resistance in this ethereal medium than in any fluid, which fills all space adequately without leaving any pores, and by consequence is much denser than quicksilver and gold? And may not its resistance be so small as to be inconsiderable? For instance, if this ether, for so I will call it, should be supposed 700,000 times more elastic than our air and above 700,000 times more rare, its resistance would be above 600 million times less than that of water. And so small a resistance would scarce make any sensible alteration in the motions of the planets in 10,000 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's one of his quotes about the ether. He's trying to rationalize the idea that some force is acting on these bodies. So he needed a medium. And I guess I will also read this one. I didn't realize I had all these in here, but yeah, this is a letter he wrote to Richard Bentley in 1692. It is inconceivable that inanimate brute matter should, without the mediation of something else, which is not material, operate upon and affect other matter without mutual contact, as it must do, meaning it's touching both things at the same time, mutual contact, as it must do if gravitation in the sense of Epicurus be essential and inherent in it. And this is one reason why I desired you would not ascribe innate gravity to me, that gravity should be innate, inherent, and essential to matter, so that one body may act upon another at a distance through a vacuum, without the mediation of something else, by and through which their action and force may be conveyed from one to another, is to me so great an absurdity that I believe no man who has in philosophical matters a competent faculty of thinking can ever fall into it. Gravity must be caused by an agent acting constantly according to certain laws, but whether this agent be material or immaterial, I've left consideration of my readers. So,
and now, if you believe that gravity is not what it is today, you're an idiot. So this guy that they all praise, is this great man, is basically saying, well, you can't have gravity if you don't have this medium between. But now, if you say that, now you're an idiot.
Exactly. And why is that? Because of this test right here. Michelson-Morley. So really, we're kind of silent for a while. I mean, what goes on from like 1666 here up to 1887, those 200 years, is a lot of electrical field theory. So what people are really doing at this point, they're just trying to understand electricity and magnetism and static electricity in the ether and different ether frameworks and stuff like that. And that was the main thing that was really being studied from those periods. There's not a lot that went on regarding this model of the Earth. People just kind of assumed it. They came up with an equation to explain how the planets could move around each other in a solar system. And Newton gave them an equation to show what would cause them to do that. And that's all they need. Now they're good. So for them, as soon as they can get the math to work by assuming Earth is the same size as Venus, right? And then assuming the heliocentric model, creating the equation for the motion, then creating another equation for what would cause the motion. Now they're good. So apparently their standard is if we can make the math work, it must be true.
Correct.
So I can apply the same standard, and as soon as I show you the same mathematical equivalence of everything moving in relation to a stationary Earth in the center, it must be true also then, huh? Right? So all of a sudden that standard doesn't work. But anyway, just pointing out that's obviously not very scientific. So most people know about this. In 1987, Albert Michelson and Edward Morley performed a test that, in the words of Einstein, quote, should have been definitive in detecting the motion of the Earth through space. It was over 10 times more sensitive than it needed to be, yet no motion was detected. This showed the Earth was in fact stationary, yet the conclusion was rejected due to philosophical devotion to the Copernican principle. And I gave the little depiction here. I'm sure almost everyone here has certainly heard of it, but you have the two light beams. They then intersect back in the middle, and when they recombine, they go to the receiver. So if the Earth is stationary, they should be the same. Or if the stationary, they should be the same. And if the Earth is moving, then the light beam that is moving with the Earth should travel a different distance. So one of the paths would be longer, which means that it should take a longer time period. That's what is expected right there, assuming that the Earth moves around the sun, but that's not what they saw. And here's another depiction of it, right? So what they saw is more akin to the left, even though there was a slight separation. What they should have seen was on the right. They didn't see it. It showed that the Earth was not moving. So this, all of a sudden, they would have probably gone forever, never even addressing anything, never updating anything. We'd probably still have Isaac Newton. We'd still have Kepler's laws with Isaac Newton. They would have never changed anything. But now, here
They
we
had
go.
to move the globe post.
Exactly. They were forced to change the model because of this, right? And so once this happened, they kind of had to come up with new stuff. That's the reason we were so quiet for 200 years. Iru, what's going on, my brother?
Hello, how you doing?
Iru.
How you doing, Jeran, Austin, Zack,
Hola,
everybody in the
brother.
chat?
How are you doing this weekend?
Fine. I have a family dinner, so that is why I was late on the show. And thank you for welcoming.
Yeah, of course,
Family
man.
dinners are important, man.
Yeah. Especially in these days, but a little late for me. But I'm here.
Nice. We'll let it slide. I'm just kidding. All right. So, and then maybe Zach, you want to tag in here. This is 1901. So, like I said, 1887. I mean, this is where they obviously came up with all kind. This is the real problem they hit. Michelson-Morley, we all know it's called the greatest failed experiment in history. 1901, you have the ionosphere, and so that's when Marconi succeeded in sending the first radio transmission across the Atlantic Ocean, disproving his detractors who told him that the curvature of the Earth would block the signal and limit the transmission at roughly 200 miles or less. The ionosphere was then discovered, quote unquote, actually theorized, to explain how this could be possible on a spherical Earth because it went 2,200 miles successfully, first attempt. You have Oliver Heaviside being the primary person who came up with this, and it was later called the ionosphere. Simply the idea is, ionized gas, what plasma is, and that plasma will reflect the radio waves as long as the frequency is equal to or lower than the frequency of the plasma. Right. So anyway, that is another pivotal part of the globe. So what happens? They go hundreds and hundreds of years, as we see here, just making stuff up. So here they're just making stuff up, mathematically making stuff up. Then technology starts getting better, and now their theory starts to fall apart, right? So as we actually begin to do different tests and different experiments and create different technology, the globe just is falling apart. So this is why they had to come back in. We pick back up with new additions to the globe because they were forced to do so. This one, of course, being that the Earth wasn't moving, which ended up changing all of physics. This, of course, being that the globe Earth is not actually physically blocking things the way it's supposed to be. So they had to add an entire layer to the Earth's atmosphere. And then because of Michelson-Morley, a few years after this is a rough time for the globe, really, if you think about it. I mean, and if you actually look back, you realize the people like the laymen at the time, they didn't really know all this was going on. It wasn't like everyone knew, like, oh man, Marconi just sent the radio transmission that shouldn't happen on the globe. Oh man, they just did a test called Michelson-Morley that shows the Earth's not moving. Like the average person didn't know about any of this. It took them years and years to kind of figure out ways to try to make it, try to get rid of the problems. So of course, in 1905, so 4 years after the transmissions, a couple decades later, after the Marconi test, or after the Michelson-Morley test. Primarily in response to Michelson-Morley experiment, Einstein proposed the special theory of relativity, which attributed a constant speed to light and did away with absolute reference frames, even though for all experiments and tests ever, they have to use what's called the stationary lab frame, which is just assuming that the Earth is at rest. Later in 1915, he published the general theory of relativity, which is the currently accepted model of gravity. This theory was required to keep the heliocentric model alive. Ironically, 1905, he did this to get rid of the ether. He did this to prove that the Earth couldn't be geocentric. And then ironically, by the time he had to propose general relativity, it says, oh, the Earth could be geocentric. It's equally valid. And there has to be an ether of some sorts, or my theory isn't even possible. So that's a very quick rundown of that. I think most people have probably heard about it. So this is where they're starting to really throw the band-aids on the globe Earth and the heliocentric model. This is where it really starts falling apart. So, and we've all seen this quote probably 100 times, but this is him referring to the Michelson-Morley, which they've now come out and said, oh, actually, Einstein had no idea about Michelson-Morley when he proposed relativity. Well, that's crazy because he specifically said in the speech that that was the first thing that led him to the theory of relativity. And that, and he actually says it like 5 different places. And he says here that since he came across the evidence or the results of that test, he then believes that the motion of the Earth cannot be detected by any optical experiment, though the Earth is revolving around the sun. So basically he's saying, even though I believe that the Earth moves around the sun, I've come to the conclusion that there's no actual way I can use any optical test to prove it.
Yeah, right. He is admitting to you that it is a philosophical point of view that he's taken right there.
Yeah, you have the goobers that are like, oh, funny how they left the end of that sentence off, right? It's like, that doesn't help you.
Yeah, that makes it look even worse. Yeah.
So they still say it to me, bro.
Prove it, but the Earth is moving around the sun.
Yeah, like I updated the meme to make sure the end of it's there, and they still say it, Witsit got caught lying, so now he puts it in there. No, it makes my point stronger. It's not relevant, It's like... Anyway, and I will say this one more time just to address that. Okay. The idea is like, oh, you left off that he said the Earth's revolving around the sun so you can trick people. It's quote mining. No, we're saying, look, even though Einstein believed in this, even he admits you can't use any optical experiment to actually detect it.
I mean,
so the
I
fact
don't
he's been
why Airy's failure. Does Einstein give a reason ever why Airy's failure is invalid?
No, Einstein didn't even give a reason for Dayton Miller's replication of Michelson-Morley. So, you know what I'm saying? Like he wasn't going outside of his wheelhouse. Like he couldn't even hit the ball right down the middle of the strike zone, bro. Like he couldn't even address Michelson-Morley in the replications. He just said, if Dayton Miller's replications are true, I'm screwed. So no, I don't think I've never even read him reference Airy's failure, which is interesting. It's one of the most simple. It's one of the most removed tests ever.
Yeah, it's very simple. I mean, it should be like in, up in the, whatchamacallit, like at a night planetarium type thing. They should have demonstrations set up with things both pointed at the exact same spot in the sky, but one's filled with water. And here, look, you can look through this one and you can see that it's off. And this one, it's perfectly normal. That's because we're moving through the universe. It would be that simple to show.
Yeah, exactly. Because by the time that the light can get there, it's in a different location, right? Pretty simple.
Yeah.
The water makes it slow down, quote unquote. So therefore,
it won't be right on the center anymore. It'll be off just a little bit.
Because the telescope's moves now.
Yeah.
So, we won't go too much into this. I mean, it's pretty simple. I think I have the next quote here. To the question whether or not the motion of the Earth can be made perceptible in terrestrial experiments, we've already remarked that all attempts of this nature led to a negative result. Before I put relativity forward, it was difficult to become reconciled with that. Basically saying, of course, that there's no optical experiment in context of this is using light, which is the most precise way we have to measure anything, any type of motion to this day, right? It's called interferometry. And then he's saying not only any experiments using light or any optical experiment, so anything that you can visually observe, but no experiment of any kind on the Earth can be done to actually detect the motion of the Earth. And after we tried so many times to detect the motion of the Earth and it never worked, it was very difficult to reconcile that with the idea that the Earth is moving until I came up with my theory to explain it away. Okay, so this is not an appeal to authority. No one cares about this crazy psychopathic graveler that cross-dressed and wanted to have sex with his wife's daughter. Our point is just that this is still the current theory that the globe model uses, and the person that created it is telling you themselves. I basically created it because all the evidence said the Earth wasn't moving. And it's now when you step back and if you're honest, you're like, oh, well, why is quantum not working with the terrestrial scale that's not working with the cosmological scale? Why do we have dark matter and dark energy and Hubble tension and the horizon problem and the flatness problem, and now all of a sudden space has to be going 4 times faster than the speed of light, and now we can't use gravity at all on the quantum scale, and it's been debunked left, right, and center. Why is it that we're hanging on to this theory if all our evidence and observations of the sky and with quantum, very precise, real physical measurements and experiments, how come we are holding on to this theory even though it doesn't work anywhere? Well, this is the answer. It's the only way to explain why everything looks like the Earth is stationary, no matter how hard you try to detect it moving. So they can't get rid of it. They're stuck in between a rock and a hard place, right?
Mm-hmm. And for, there's always people out here, they would never lie. They would never lie. William Casey. Go look up William Casey, CIA director, 1981. His first briefing with President Reagan. What did he say? Our mission will be done when everything the American citizens believe is false.
And I guess we'll go over to Rockfin here in a few minutes. So that's rockfin.com/globebusters. And we'll have the mods drop the Rockfin link in the chat. We'll kind of start popping through some of this. And you guys jump in with any extra. We won't take too much time on this. I think I've talked about this maybe 1,000 times, but final quote here from Einstein says, but when I was a student, so before relativity, I saw that experiments of this kind had already been made, in particular by your compatriot Michelson. Oh, experiments trying to detect the motion of the Earth but failed, and you were a student. That's when you discovered it, like the one by Michelson. So why are people claiming he didn't even know about it? It's so obvious that you guys are like freaking out. Anyway, he proved that one does not notice anything on Earth that it moves, but that everything takes place on Earth as if the Earth is in a state of rest. As if hey, do you guys think maybe? Can you think of any reason that would be the case? Can anyone here think of anything?
Because it is.
What? So you're saying the Earth may appear to be at rest because it's at rest.
It's at rest.
That's crazy. Like, I guess that does kind of make sense, Zach, now that you say it. And I think about if the Earth was at rest, it would maybe look like that.
Yeah. And if it was moving, it would probably appear to be moving.
You would think so, yeah. Now that you say that. Interesting. And yeah, here it boils it all down here. And which one is autobiographies where you write about yourself?
Yeah.
So here's the biography of Einstein here by Ronald Clark, Einstein, The Life and Times. He says, well, after they had the Michelson-Morley experiment, they only had a few options. And the first option was that the Earth is standing still, which meant that the whole Copernican theory was wrong. And that wasn't even an option. That was unthinkable. It was blasphemous.
Not even an option.
Yeah, because it would be heresy.
That's science.
Yeah, bro. Scientific, bro. All right, so here we go. Now we get into where the government starts popping up. The same year general relativity was proposed. And so if you really start to look at it from the meta, right? I mean, okay, they go hundreds of years. I mean, we go from supposedly 240 BC, dude sticks in the ground or whatever, right? You go all the way up to 1490, they're supposed to make a globe. So you have hundreds of years, nothing happening. And then they come up with Kepler's laws, kinematics, they come up with gravity. They saw the apple and all of a sudden he thought, oh, the moon's doing that, and then they came up with gravity, whatever. Then we go forward even further where nothing happens for a few hundred years. And then tests start showing that the model's wrong. And then it's really going to get interesting. So that's when it starts to get super interesting, right? We showed that the Earth wasn't moving. They had to change all of physics, all of it. I mean, they had to throw out everything we used to come up with electrical field theory, all of our theories of electricity, everything. They had to throw the ether out. They had to change everything. They had to change all of physics. They had to say everything's moving, but you can never tell, and blah, 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 right? They changed everything. And then they added the ionosphere because the radio waves show the Earth wasn't a ball. So the same year general relativity was proposed, that's when NACA was founded, right? Which is the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, which is just basically the predecessor to NASA.
Mhm.
Congress established NACA, I don't know how you pronounce NACA, to separate the real from the imagined and make known the overlooked and unexpected. That is a quote unquote,
Whoa.
that's their quote unquote MO. Again, to separate the real from the imagined and make known the overlooked and unexpected in the quest for flight. In 1958, NACA staff, research facilities, and know-how were transitioned to the new NASA. And that is a citation from Smithsonian Institution.
Wow, 1915. And I noticed that's like right around the time when I was researching high altitude aerosol dispersion. That's like right around the exact same time. I think it was like 1918, 1917 was when they first started doing it with balloons and releasing different types of particulates into the air to see if they could manipulate the weather. So,
This is why I
that's
think
crazy.
Einstein was just like a figurehead. I think that the government was helping make that theory.
Oh yeah, he's probably like our Elon Musk of today.
Yeah. So the government was helping make the theory, they got it out, and they started this committee at the same time. That's what I think. Like Jeran's made many good points about it. I mean, like, this dude supposedly taught at university, but he can't speak in English to even give a speech.
I have an article, not an article. I have a piece of an article saying that the general relativity theory is more is more of J.P. Morgan than Albert Einstein in the beginning of the theory. So he has a lot of investors that support that, and beyond the government, or he have families behind his theory.
Wow, I bet he did. That's pretty interesting. I would love to read that.
Yeah. Well, I don't have the article. I'm gonna paste in the Skype chat because it's not the full article, but it's like a piece. It's like the introduction, and it's nice to take a look.
Cool, yeah. I'll pull it up. So yeah, I didn't even know about this. I didn't know that NASA had like a predecessor, but that's the same year GR was proposed. Yeah, drop in the Skype and I'll pop it up, brother. So then we have, and just a reminder again, we're going to pop over to Rockfin in a few minutes. So if some mods will help me out and drop the link to the Rockfin stream, it would be greatly appreciated.
Yes.
Oh, you dropped it. No. Oh, okay. Okay, so I have here 1925, the expanding universe. So things just continue to fall apart for them. And, telescopes got a little better. They looked further out into quote unquote space. And they saw that everything moves in relation to the Earth. Like, it looks like the Earth is super special. Like, it's in the center of everything. That's not what they expected. Really, all these quote unquote discoveries that we're going through now are actually just responses that they had to update the model. They're not scientific discovery. They're, oh, damn, our model's wrong. Right? That's what it actually is.
Yeah, they had kind of not so much reverse engineer, but do a little tidying up. Snipping here, snipping there, move this over here. Yeah. You'll see that with orbital mechanics. A lot of things in orbital mechanics came around right about this time, where there's all these, equations to fix this problem. This variable, you throw in this thing here, this thing there, kind of like they do with the whole refraction scale. There's all kind. As soon as I looked, I didn't even have to get into orbital mechanics. I was looking at the index at the beginning, or whatever that is at the beginning. Yeah, isn't that the index where it tells you all the different stuff? And I was like, all these are pretty much just why it doesn't work and what you have to do to correct for that. None of it is this is how it works. Yeah, it was so much nonsense.
I pasted the picture in the GLOBEBUSTER live chat on Skype.
Okay, cool.
And again, it's low quality piece of article. I cannot read because the letters are so small and there is so poor quality in the JPEG that it's impossible to read. I don't even remember where I get the uh, the the picture, but it was a little curious for me, so that it was why I save it in my hard drive. And of course, I have pictures. There are just pictures, of course, but with JP Morgan, with the Walbur family, with of course, he was a celebrity at the time, so you can you know uh, believe whatever you want. But that title is a little provocative.
Okay, cool. Maybe I can like reverse search this and find the article, but it says
Oh, that will nice. That will be nice. Yeah.
it says the theory of relativity is more J.P. Morgan than Albert Einstein. Very interesting.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense, honestly.
Magnavox, supposedly what it is a magazine, or it's something related with science.
I know they used to make digital equipment, didn't they? Magnavox, VCRs, or something like that. TVs, maybe.
Yes, there is a brand, but in the title said the Magnavox theory of relativity is more than JP Morgan and Albert Einstein. I don't know if that is some joke in the title or some,
Magnavox.
but yeah.
I'm not sure. I've never heard the Magnavox theory before.
Well, it just makes a lot of sense, right? When you look at Tesla and J.P. Morgan's relationship.
Yeah, of course. Hmm.
So J.P. Morgan had an invested interest in a very specific interpretation of physics, specifically that there be no ether. Right? So it does kind of make sense, honestly. And that's because of, monetarily, he can obviously monopolize the idea of scarcity and rarity of electricity. And so, you get rid of this all-encompassing background where the electricity comes from, then, yeah, you'll make more money. I mean, who knows? I mean, J.P. Morgan was the one of the two primary funders for Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower, which was basically like his aspirations of free energy. And then Jacob
Wasn't he
Astor.
lying to him about it the whole time?
What do you mean?
Like he was paying him to do one thing and he was using that money to build his tower. Well, he told him he was going to build the generator and the tower and everything, but he didn't tell him what it was actually for at the time.
Well, I think he also ended up even being more covert in building it within a hotel that he was staying at. But like what's in, of course, J.P. Morgan owned the Titanic, was supposed to go on that trip and then randomly canceled his trip last minute. But then Jacob Astor and many other very wealthy people opposed to the Federal Reserve were on it. Once he died, then all you have left is J.P. Morgan. He pulled the rest of the funding. And so it's as if J.P. Morgan actually orchestrated a scheme to stop Tesla because he was going to try to create free electricity utilizing the ether. And then to also have some connection with Einstein pushing out this other thing would be very interesting, especially when you get into we're going to go over to Rockfin, and I'll give the rest of my take on that. So everyone down in Rockfin, you guys got some stuff you want to say to the YouTube audience before we get out of here?
Nope. Thanks for watching. Head over to Rockfin. Take care of that channel. They're doing great as far as letting us get away with stuff. People were all upset. My video on Friday got taken down already by YouTube, but it's still up on Rockfin. So what can you do?
Yeah, it is nice having some place to actually have your stuff stored where it's going to be safe.
Right. I don't have to worry about, I got to go edit that part out and re-render a 5-hour video. It's just, sorry, it was on YouTube and now it's not. Now it's on Rockfin.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's crazy, bro? Like I tried to also stream on Rumble at the same time, and dude, as soon as I popped over there, I had 500 people watching, and it started glitching out. And I was talking about the grabblers.
I went live on DLive and Rumble too, but I forgot to look how many people were at Rumble. He had 500, huh? Nice. Yeah,
immediately, but then it started glitching out. It dropped all the way down to like 3 something, but I think Rockfin was running smooth the whole time. I started talking about the grabblers. I'm not saying that I'm just saying it's pretty interesting. Rockfin seemed to allow me to but maybe it's something else. All right. Anyway, so the links are in the chat. It's set to free, no excuses. I don't know. It might be changed later, but you guys should definitely sub, show some love over there. I don't see any other super chats, so let me double check, make sure I read them all. StreamYard does this thing now where it has a live and a stars section, so your super chats are automatically starred, so you can keep up with them. It's very cool. John Smith, Jeran, can you set up the Austin versus Big Tech FE debate?
Yes, I don't know who Big Tech is, but I can look into it.
Big Tech used to speak smack, but gone silent since Austin said he's down. Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't know who that is, but we can talk about it. Thank you for the $5 super chat. I mean, like, basically, I'm looking at an hour. I'm not just debating anyone and everyone anymore. So, but we'll see how it goes. Brunette Latina, thank you for becoming a member. And then Run Boston Bear, $10. It's so wild that Globers think you guys are the uneducated ones while they continue to believe these stories in 2023. It's time the fairy tales get put away for good. Agreed, brother. Thank you for the support. Run Boston Bear is obviously a legend. Thank you guys for all the super chats. And yeah, cool. Thank you guys for hanging out with us on YouTube. Zach or Iri, you got anything you want to say to the YouTube? We got 250 here.
Jump to Rockfin and continue with us. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
All right,
come
cool.
hang out. It's so nice to be able to speak freely. Even though, do you guys ever have that? Even when we switch over, you're still kind of censoring yourself almost. I'm so
Always good.
used to speaking on
sometimes, yeah.
YouTube that it's like, yeah, it's just like in me now that I'm always holding back a little bit.
Yep.
So yeah, but over there it does get we get to talk about some more controversial topics that we don't even really scratch the surface here.
Yeah, we're about to talk about what was going on with Einstein and physics.
There you go.
And what the real tea behind that is, real quick.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, thank you guys for hanging out here. And we'll finish over on Rockfin. The Telegram group to Globebusters is there. I dropped the PowerPoint, and we will catch up with you guys next Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern. We'll start on YouTube as well. So, all right. Peace out. Much love, YouTube.
Peace.